Hello and welcome to the weather update. It's 10 o'clock on September 15th. And here's Lee right there. And we definitely saw some of the clouds in the sky today from it. And definitely some impressive waves at the beach. But here on the satellite, you can see here's Lee right here. You can see that outer cirrus band around it. And the center of it right over here. See, definitely looking a lot. You see how big it is, too. I mean, it's just huge. It's a huge storm, and it's continuing to move north. So let's look at this on the satellite. Can't even really see it too much on this. This is the northeast satellite, so you can see the high clouds kind of streaming in, and it's very interesting to see them kind of boiling out from the center. Take a look at that. That's very interesting. Let's go and look at Lee on here. So we'll look at Lee on here, and again, you can see that it is moving north, and it's moving. The center of it is moving toward Nova Scotia, and you can see that right there. That again is a look at Lee on what it looks like as far as from the satellite, as far as what it looked like on the ground today. This is what the ocean looked like at Long Beach. I have a video for you. Very big waves breaking, but they're a little far out. But you can see this is probably a over 10-foot wave right here. Very, very high wave, and I have a short video of that that'll be up a little bit later. Again, here's a look at the sky. Again, you can see the cirrus. Little look at the cirrus there. And here's some more. Another look at the cirrus. And again, some cirrus and cirrocumulus in there. Maybe some altocumulus. And then towards sunset, it was really beautiful. Well, you'll see all that in another video. But let's get the latest from the National Hurricane Center right now on Hurricane Lee. Latest public advisory on Lee. Tropical storm conditions nearing southern New England as of 8 p.m. Its location is 38.3 north, 66.0 west, about 470 miles south-southwest of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and about 300 miles southeast of Nantucket, Massachusetts. Maximum sustained winds are 80 miles an hour, moving north-northeast at 20 miles an hour. So the good news is it's still staying north-northeast. Instead, it isn't curving toward the west. That doesn't seem to be happening. Minimum central pressure, 965 millibars to 8.50 inches. We have this forward speed expected to continue, and it will approach the coast of New England and Atlantic Canada through Saturday. Lee is then expected to turn toward the north-northeast and northeast and move toward, though they do say a north to northwest, they still think that is going to curve here. It says here, a north to northwest motion is forecasted to resume later tonight. And this motion at a faster forward speed is expected through Saturday. So there you go. And so Lee is a very large and dangerous storm. Maximum sustained winds are near 80 miles an hour. And hurricane force winds extend outward to 115 miles from the center. So you don't even have to be near the center to feel the power of this. And tropical storm force winds extend out to 345 miles from the center. NOAA buoy 44011, located about 210 miles north of the center, had recently reported a peak 1-minute sustained wind of 47 miles an hour and a gust to 67. So, that's pretty impressive. It's a very large storm for sure. And looking at and again, Lee has caused some flooding conditions on Long Island as well. And this tonight's high tide will probably be the worst. It's occurring probably around now or maybe a little bit earlier. You can see that's probably where it's making its closest approach. It is moving at a good clip, as you can see there. We'll look at a couple of other satellite images here and show you. We'll do a U.S. Atlantic coast satellite image as well, so you can see Lee here. Again, we'll put this back to like 84 hours so you can see here. Yeah, there's still, look at that. You can really see still a lot of convection, mostly on this side of the storm, it seems. This side of the storm this is the inflow, but then it's kind of starting to become a little extra tropical almost a little bit. You could sort of see how it's taking the tropical air and then it's rising up over the cooler, drier air down here. You can almost see a little bit of a transition going on. And I'm kind of curious if we put this in GLM flash intensity mode. Lightning. Let's see if we still have a lot of lightning in the center. We'll see if we can load this here. Showing, not showing too much lightning. A little bit, not too much. But there, it almost looks like it is starting to move a little bit toward the northwest a little bit. That last little bit here. But anyway, let's go look at some observations. And obviously, across our area, we have the high surf advisory in effect. So we have high surf advisory. And I couldn't believe there are actually surfers, believe it or not, people in the water at Long Beach. I couldn't believe it. Nobody was doing anything to tell them to leave because it's very dangerous. We also have the coastal flood advisory. That's in effect till 5 a.m. Sunday. And this high surf advisory is going to be in effect till 3 a.m. Sunday. We have another thing here. Let's see what we got here. Coastal flood statement through late Saturday night. And then as we go to the waters, we have the small craft advisory. That's going to be in effect till 6 a.m. Sunday. And then going off to the east here, you'll see here, we have the tropical storm warning in effect for Cape Cod. And over here, we've got a tropical storm warning as well. Tropical storm warning. I don't think they've issued any hurricane warnings at this point. I think they said a hurricane watch is still in effect. So we need to go to the actual map from the Hurricane Center. It'll kind of make things a little clearer here for us. So let's go here. And you'll see here's the map. So tropical storm warnings in effect. But in the pink, right now they've taken Maine out of the pink. Nova Scotia is in that hurricane watch. So they could still experience hurricane conditions there. At least that's what the Hurricane Center thinks, though. Conditions in Nova Scotia are already beginning to deteriorate with some pretty strong winds already starting to happen. Provincetown is already northeast of 25, gusting to 35. So already seeing some pretty strong winds over here. Nantucket has a north wind at 36, gusting to 45 as well with some light rain. So they are getting into some of the rain. If we look here, you'll see some of the rain is starting to make it onto the Cape now. You can see some of the heavier rain bands just offshore right now of the Cape right there. So, yeah, Cape Cod, like I said, is going to probably, as far as any part of the United States goes, I think Cape Cod could get to see the worst of this storm because it sticks out, and that's going to make the close, basically closer to the storm, basically. And I'm still concerned about storm surge in this area as well. So we're going to go here. Latest briefing on Hurricane Lee. I don't think anything's changed, but we will go to the latest briefing, 5:30. Lee will make its closest approach at our latitude early Saturday morning and is likely to be 275 miles east of Montauk Point at closest approach. And you can see here again, we got the high surf advisory in effect, all right? Breaking waves of 10 to 18 or is it 10 to 16 along the Long Island Ocean beachfront tonight and Saturday morning, resulting in widespread dune erosion and scattered overwashes. Scattered instances of flooding in roadways and vulnerable structures behind protective dunes is likely during times of high tide. Breaking waves of 6 to 10 feet for the New York City Ocean beachfront. And doesn't mention Jersey, but anyway, I'm sure they're gonna be dealing with the waves too as well. So these waves are still gonna be. See, here's the storm. We went over this yesterday with the coastal impacts here that we have here, and again, you see in red the eastern Long Island, southeast Connecticut could get into the stronger winds, but tropical storm force wind probabilities remain very low, and only for eastern portions of Long Island. The rainfall is generally going to be over the Cape for this, so we're not going to really see any rain at all. But if we go over and change this over here to the boys, you can see that tropical storm warning in effect as well. And if you look at our offshore waters too, you would also see a tropical storm warning in effect right here. All right, so we have gale warnings also in effect here. So if we go over here, you see gale warnings are in effect in that area. Offshore. So yeah, we're still gonna have impacts. And again, there's the radar, and you can see again some of the light rain there that's coming in. Move this over to the other site, get a better look here. Let's take a look at this one here, this radar here, and you'll see here on this radar that there's that heavier rain starting to come right into the Cape, and they could see an inch of rain on the Cape from this. So let's go and look at some more conditions across the area here, and um, let's get some buoy observations. First of all, this buoy is reporting a 44008 is reporting a north-northwest wind to 36, gusting to 45, wave heights up to 16.1 feet already. So, and again, the storm is somewhere over here. Let's look at this buoy here, 44018, reporting a north wind to 36, gusting to 42, wave height 9.5 feet. And let's see if we can get some readings from some of the buoys on the south shore here. Wave height 9.8 feet here on this buoy. No wind reported here. This buoy is reporting 5.9 feet. So it seems like the further east you go, the more substantial the waves are going to be. This, maybe not. Barnegat Bay reporting wave heights of 8.5 feet. So, yeah, there's some pretty strong waves out there. That's why we have that surf advisory in effect. So let's take a look at what the day was like in our area today as far as the weather goes. It was very cool, very comfortable. I actually had the air conditioner off all day, believe it or not, and it's not hot in here. Amazing. That's because of that strong, gusty north wind, keeping the air, flowing, and I guess it's powerful enough to get into the alley. See some gusts up into the mid-20s here. Temperatures really struggled to reach 70 today, even with that filtered sunshine. And then tonight we're dropping into the low 60s already, so we're already at 63 at Islip already. So, yeah, very nice and cool today, very comfortable. That breeze really made it feel nice. And, got myself plenty of walking in, but no, I didn't go to the Pine Barrens. But low 70s, sea highs generally in low 70s, North Shore only in the upper 60s. Jersey, maybe a little more toward mid-70s because there's a little more sun there. And again, nice low dew points as well. Let's look at the lows, 60 at West Hampton. So generally upper 50s to around 60. No radiational cooling with that wind. Jersey got a little cooler, though. They got down into the low to mid-50s. And again, very comfortable dew points. If we, again, look at the dew points here. You'll see dew points have generally been in the mid-50s. Islip's 54. So generally dew points right in the mid-50s, though we did have some periods of dew points in the 40s. Absolutely very, very comfortable out there. Beautiful, beautiful weather despite Lee being around. That's for sure. So let's get out of the weather and hazards map. We'll go back to here. We'll go over our statistics for the day, and then we'll talk more about Lee. So Islip, high was 71. 4 degrees below normal on the high. Low of 60 was 1 degree above normal, giving us an average of 66, so 1 degree below normal. Fairly close to normal for the day. Central Park, 8 degrees below normal on the high. They only hit 69, that's 6 degrees below normal for the day. That's a lot. That's a lot. Again, just Newark, obviously Jersey being warmer, 74. That's still 4 degrees below normal for the high and 4 degrees below normal for the day. So, yeah, it was pretty nice and cool out there, So let's go and talk about Lee. Let's go to the models here. And we'll go and look at the Northeast U.S. model. And this is the GFS. So we start with the GFS. Obviously, Lee is going to continue. It's still showing that little hook there that you're going to see there toward the northwest a little bit there. There's that hook right there. That you see that's going to take it a little bit closer to the Cape, but I don't think we get into any of the rain. But you can see as definitely Nova Scotia, parts of Maine, definitely seeing some rapidly deteriorating conditions. And then as we get into tomorrow night, Saturday night, you can see Nova Scotia is really going to get pounded with some heavy rain and wind. And then that continues to move north and then weaken and probably go extratropical once the center of it is over the land. But still be a very strong extratropical storm, as you see. If we look at our wind field again, you'll see here the wind field. The wind field does not impact us, but you see the Cape is definitely going to be dealing with some tropical storm force winds. Though, again, the center isn't coming quite as close to the Cape as I feared, so the Cape may dodge the wind bullet, but I still think they're going to have some pretty bad storm surge, but maybe because the center is just a little further away, maybe not as bad as it could have been, but still, it's going to be bad. And then you can see as it goes into Nova Scotia. It will weaken after it passes Nova Scotia, but Nova Scotia is going to have some pretty strong winds as well. The Nova Scotia has a rugged coastline, so they usually don't have to worry too much about storm surge, at least. So anyway, let's go to the NAM. Let's go to the HRRR. We should have the full HRRR in. Though again, it doesn't show the whole thing because the HRRR doesn't go out all the way. It doesn't go all. It doesn't go past like this line basically, because it's a North American model. It's more of a North American only model. So it's not a global model. It's a mesoscale model. But here's the HRRR, and you'll see there's that wind field, and again, getting in over the Cape definitely, and then you can see it kind of weaken as it gets in. But those isobars are pretty close together. Let's look at precipitation here. All right. So here's your precipitation. You can see very deep low. See, it does that little wobble right there. Probably before sunrise tomorrow, it's going to do that little wobble. And it might take just a little sprinkle over the, maybe over Montauk. But the Cape, definitely going to be seeing some rain. Definitely to Nova Scotia, you're going to be seeing some rain. And if we look at our weather, obviously we're not going to be seeing any rain tomorrow, but our next chance of rain could be later Sunday. But let's talk about, we're going to focus mainly on Lee in this update. I'm not really going to talk so much about Sunday's weather. So let's talk about how much rain that's going to fall here. Total accumulated precip here. And you could see the Cape could see maybe 1 and maybe even 2 inches, especially on the outer Cape. And then going into Maine, that's where you're going to see some heavier rains, like 3 inches. Parts of Nova Scotia, 2 to 3 inches of rain there from this storm. All right. Dew points and wind flow, we'll just get this out of the way first. You can see we got the north winds tomorrow. Become a little more northwesterly by the afternoon. That's going to mean higher temperatures tomorrow. Probably closer to average because we were below normal on the highs today. But still dry air. You can see that. And then as we get into Sunday, that's when we'll see our winds sort of back a little bit, and that'll bring in some warmer air back somewhere to the west. Looking at our temperatures tonight, we're probably going to drop into the 50s. Though, again, with the wind, I don't think we see the radiational cooling as much. It'll actually be a little warmer out east probably because the winds will be stronger versus to the west where they have lighter winds. But I still think we'll have lows in the mid-50s to around 60. Tomorrow, you see it'll be a little bit warmer, mid to upper 70s tomorrow. Tomorrow night, we'll drop back. Tomorrow night, winds will drop off, and we'll probably have an opportunity for radiational cooling tomorrow night with lows in the 50s. And then, oddly enough, that's not as good a setup for me, even though tomorrow night will be colder. We don't have that wind that can't cool off, can't blow in the air into the alley and cool it off. And then Sunday, we'll probably be closer to 80. So let's go to a few more models now that we got our weather out of the way as far as our temperatures and dew points and stuff. Let's go look at the NAM 12 here. You have actually 45 frames of it in already, believe it or not, which is pretty good. So let's go look at the NAM 12. So you can see here, and again, that rain generally goes over the Cape. You can see that. And it goes, that landfall is going to probably somewhere be tomorrow afternoon, probably somewhere in that Nova Scotia, eastern Maine area is where you're going to have that landfall. So let's go take a look at the amount of rain we're going to see here, total accumulated precip, and again, it looks pretty much like the HRRR at this point as far as rainfall goes. But the other thing that we have to be concerned about, and I don't think this does it as far as waves go, let's go back to the GFS here. Then we're going to look at the waves. Again, we can also do 850 wind as well. If you look at 850 wind, this is the wind above the surface here, right? And you can see some of those purples do get into Cape Cod there. That's your tropical storm force winds probably come into Cape Cod right there. We're not going to have to deal with any of that, luckily. All right, let's go to the wave height. That's the wave period. No, we need wave height. All right, so this is your wave height. Again, you can see how things have ramped up. Now, luckily, again, for us, it will improve as we get toward tomorrow afternoon. We'll see less in the way of the strong waves. But as you see here, those strong waves are going to be coming into Nova Scotia. Cape, I'm still concerned about the Cape tomorrow as well. Luckily, the center is going over here, but it's still, because of the way the Cape is shaped, it could wedge water in on the back bay part of the Cape, and that's what I'm concerned about. And And you can see some huge waves coming in to Nova Scotia there. Let's get the skies now. Let's do the skies briefly, because it's still kind of questionable as to what's going to happen with the cirrus shield. Most models agree it stays over us tomorrow, and then doesn't leave until late tomorrow night. And then by that time, we'll have more clouds moving with the next weather system. We could look at the RGEM as well. A few more cloud models here. This is the RGEM as well. So here's the cirrus shield kind of staying over us. If you're, again, real southern New Jersey, you won't have to deal with it. But we'll probably have that cirrus around tomorrow. And maybe if it sticks around for sunset, we'd have another nice sky at sunset, which would be nice. But again, the models are kind of differing on this. Again, this is the NAM. No, they kind of agree, actually. The NAM, I mean, I think it seems like there's an agreement on most of these. FV3, which we don't really have that much of, and I don't want to use more than I have to on that. So I really think we'll probably see a decent amount of cirrus around tomorrow. All right. So I don't really want to talk about the clouds too much here. Let's get to some more graphics here and show you the hurricane. So here again is Lee. This is wind gusts. This is the Ventu Sky site looking at your HRRR. An icon model, it says combined here. But you can see this is, again, you're seeing the winds here. And here's the center of Lee. Let's move this along into tomorrow here. It's tomorrow morning here. All right, so this is 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And you can see the conditions along the Cape. This is probably when they're going to be at their worst. Tomorrow morning, again, you can see the wind's gusting up into the 60s, maybe even a hurricane force gust. And this concern is that this wind is going to, and this is my concern here, you see the way the Cape is shaped, it's going to pile the water into these back bay areas. So the storm surge on the ocean side won't be that bad. It's going to be the bay areas that the water is going to get pushed in that we're going to see that storm surge on the Cape from this. Let's go move this over to 11. And here we are at 11. You can see things maybe improving a little, more or less staying pretty significant on the Cape. Very windy conditions. Conditions rapidly getting bad in Nova Scotia. Let's move this to 1 o'clock here. 2 o'clock. You can see things easing up on the Cape. Nova Scotia, you can see, again, they're going to be dealing with at least tropical storm force winds. And they have, whatever the reason they have it, kind of weakening at this point. Though there's still some hurricane force winds in here, and that's the question here at this point. But you can see it has that landfall western end of Nova Scotia right there. And it kind of slows it down a little bit. You can see it's still kind of sitting there. Here we are at 11 o'clock, and it's still kind of sitting here. And if I move this to Sunday, let's do 7. Yeah, you can see now it's finally out over here into the further north, to Newfoundland area. You can see it kind of just, it doesn't really move much once it gets up there. It kind of gets stuck a little bit. So it's not really moving that much, and that's where we would have to worry about maybe some heavier rainfall problems that would occur in this area. So now I'm going to show you the impacts on, we'll take this back to the current time, and we'll go to waves, because obviously we're seeing those waves, and you can see again and again, a little more when you get more out east, the more significant it is. Coming to 11 o'clock tonight. Again, you see that. But if you're in the Cape, this is where you're having your issues. 13.9 feet, 15-foot waves here. Let's move this all to Saturday here. Saturday morning at 5 a.m. Things ease a little bit, but still pretty bad on, pretty significant on Long Island. Again, when you have these high tides, that's the concern, which this doesn't show. But you can see, and again, the waves in the storm are, and you can see massive waves now as we get to, even if this is 5 a.m. tomorrow, see some massive waves already starting to affect Nova Scotia, Maine. Moving this to 11. You can see, look at this 30-foot waves here. It's pretty insane. As far as our area goes, it's starting to ease a little bit. Still significant. And then by, excuse me, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go to 2. So you can see, again, this is what we're concerned about. The storm surges in this area are a real concern. There's the center of Lee, and then you can see some absolutely insane waves here on the west end of Nova Scotia. And I'm going to go to maps, and we're just going to take a look at this area just to give you an idea of what could happen here. So let's go over the maps. And first, let's go to the Cape to show you some of these areas I'm concerned about. Areas like this, all right? Along, again, north the bay sides, these areas here are going to get inundated here. And you could see a storm surge in here, too, like places like the north side of Hyannis, all right? This is where you can see, because it's flat over here. I think it's pretty flat over here. Yeah, it's flat. The water's going to come right in here. It's going to flood all of this, all right? So all of this is going to be underwater. So this is going to be a big problem for the Cape, the north part of Cape. So Barnstable, I meant Barnstable, not Hyannis. But these are the areas that I'm concerned about here, that you're going to have a lot of storm surge. And how far can it go? You know, it could even reach, it's definitely going to, it could, hopefully it doesn't reach the highway over here. But, I mean, you have a lot of towns over here on the other side of the highway here. You also have a substation as well over here at Barnstable Substation, power lines. So I think once you get up this point, I think you're okay. I think there's enough of a hill here that it should keep the water out. I think there's enough of a hill over here, so hopefully it will keep that out. The other area, of course, that we have to be concerned about is Provincetown, which is very low. Now, you have some big dunes there, but again, that's also a concern. We'll just show you what it looks like over here. Yes, there are pine barrens here, and this is a place I would love to visit. You can see it. I really hope it doesn't get flooded, right? Because this is a beautiful area over here. See, I want to get closer to the beach. All right, here's the beach. To give you an idea of the beach, I think they have a more rugged coastline over here, so I think this area might be okay. Well, the water may not actually come in here. Hopefully it doesn't, all right? That's a beautiful area, Provincetown. They have some absolutely beautiful pine barrens over there. But the whole Cape is full of pine barrens. And then the other area, of course, we have to be concerned about is Nova Scotia, the southern end of Nova Scotia. I'm thinking they have a pretty rugged coastline here. We're going to take a look and see what it looks like. Yeah, this is not high enough. The water's going to come right over this and flood this road. So these are the areas that could get flooded. Again, you have some hills, but then you have some low-lying areas. I think this low-lying is going to get inundated, and they really, hopefully, are evacuating people over there. We'll have to see what Nova Scotia is doing tomorrow. But anyway, let's move this along here. So 5 o'clock, you can still see the surface still pretty high over here. 11 o'clock, the Cape is finally seeing relief by tomorrow night, Saturday night, but you can still see a lot of big waves coming into Nova Scotia right here. So that's going to be bad. That's going to be bad. But for us, it will definitely die down, definitely by tomorrow night, for sure. And they'll probably be able to, again, by Sunday, the ocean should be back to being safer to swim in. But again, for tomorrow, most of tomorrow is still going to be kind of rough out there. So we looked at the models here. We're going to look at the windy.com model as well. So let's go ahead and look at that. And this will be the last one we will look at here. We'll put this wind gusts in so you get an idea. You visualize this, all right? I'm moving this in. And this is the European model. You can see how the Cape gets in and out. But like I said, the worst part of the donut is just offshore. Even though it's a big storm, the center of it is far enough away. But for us, we're still going to have some wind gusts. We're still going to be dealing with some wind, and the European seems to think that we're going to have definitely a pretty breezy day tomorrow here on Long Island. And then you can see there is that landfall. Again, there seems to be an agreement on that south end of Nova Scotia is where the center of it's going to go. But don't pay too much attention to the center. Pay attention to the area around it, because that's where all the strong winds are going to be. All right, so when this thing makes a landfall here, it could still be a hurricane. I think it could still be a hurricane, and then it will weaken. But as far as the Cape goes, at least it's tracked a little more east compared to what it was looking like. But the Cape is still going to get into some, again, here we are tomorrow morning, Cape's dealing with wind gusts up to 67 miles an hour. That's pretty significant. All right, and we look at the waves again. This is the waves on this model, which I actually happen to like better. Put this back to now. And you can see here, again, some really high waves going on. In the center of this, look at these waves right here. 40 footers in the center of this storm right here. Moving this to tomorrow morning here, 6 a.m. You could see here we're still dealing with some pretty rough surf here on Long Island here. Uh, and then the Cape is where things are going to rapidly deteriorate because you're going to have some pretty strong waves. Would be approaching 20 footers coming in, and that's the concern that we're going to have the storm surge here. And the winds are going to kind of pile it in on the base side a little bit here. Well, that water is going to be pouring in there, and that's the concern that we have. Nantucket as well. But here we are at 9 a.m. Things are starting to improve a little bit on Long Island. We don't have crazy big waves here. And then by 2 p.m., conditions on Long Island will continue to improve. They're still rough, but if you're in the Cape, you're still going to be dealing with some really damaging waves. They're going to be coming in a storm surge. And again, look at what's going to happen with Nova Scotia. You know, you think you live in Canada, you don't have to deal with getting hit by hurricanes. But look, we had Fiona now. Now, they could be a hurricane hotspot now with the new new climate normal that we have. So look at these waves that are going to be coming in 30 footers off the coast of the southern coast of Nova Scotia tomorrow. I mean, that's pretty crazy right there. That is pretty crazy. So this kind of gives you an idea of what's happening here. And then it finally doesn't die down in Nova Scotia until probably late Sunday. All right? But this just gives you an idea of the catastrophic storm surge that could occur in places like Nova Scotia, as well as Cape Cod. Though I think Nova Scotia, wherever it's not, wherever there aren't hills, that water is going to come in and it's going to be devastating. You're going to have a lot of roads washed out on the south end of Nova Scotia, I think. It's going to be devastating. It's going to be worse than Fiona. This is a worse storm, I think. You could look at swells, too. So this is another map of swells here. It shows the swells from the storm. So we move this back to 4 a.m. You can see the swells affecting Long Island as we go into tomorrow, though. The swells back off. But you can see for the Cape, you can see there's going to be some significant swells here. They're going to be coming in, all right? And then, of course, if you're on Nova Scotia here, these are the insane swells that you're going to be dealing with here. And also into this area, too, as well. This is another concern, though. With the winds blowing this way, that helps things a little bit. But on this side. But if you're on the other side and the ascent goes here and the winds are coming from the south, that is going to be the problem, and that's the issue. Areas like Nova Scotia, I think we're going to see a lot of devastation here, and I think that as far as which area is going to get the worst of this, I think it's going to be Nova Scotia. I think it's going to be the south end of Nova Scotia, and I think it's going to be significant damage to the winds are going to cause a lot of damage to the power grid, but I think you're going to have a lot of flooding in a lot of these areas here like this. I mean, does this look, how much above the waves is this? No, this is going to be underwater, all of this. I feel bad for these people, these homes, and this is all going to be underwater. This is going to be washed away. This is going to be devastating. I can't see how we're not going to have a devastating storm surge in this area. So that's why I think the hardest hit area will be the southern part of the south shore of Nova Scotia. Though, again, Nova Scotia itself will get the worst of this storm. So that's going to wrap up this weather update. Praying for everybody in Nova Scotia. They had the wildfires. They had to deal with Fiona. And now they got to deal with this. It's just Canada has just really been suffering. And, we're going to pray for Canada. Canada, you'd think Canada would being the furthest north would escape the worst of the climate crisis. But it's actually the opposite. The areas that are further north get actually impacted worse, and in some ways. And Canada is definitely one of those places that's definitely seeing these crazy impacts because they stick out more and because they are east. The storms just don't have enough time to go out and recurve completely, and they go and hit Nova Scotia. And Nova Scotia could become a real hurricane hotspot. Nova Scotia could wind up seeing more hurricanes than even Florida, perhaps. Definitely going to see more hurricanes than we are, but we're not out of the woods yet, and we'll talk more about the Long Range on Sunday night. I'll have more updates for you on Hurricane Lee throughout tomorrow. So have a good night, and thank you for watching.